Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and had a viewer send me something that I looked into, and there is this group called the Be Real campaign who are promoting female obesity, and apparently they're praising Nike women for doing the same. So let me put on my +5 hat of weaponsmithing, work on skilling up my crafting a little bit, and let's talk about this. You know, and this is cause for concern. This is something we should be concerned about when we live in a society where the obesity epidemic is killing people. There are millions of deaths every year in the Western world that can be very, very clearly attributed to obesity. It also negatively affects healthcare costs, the cost of your health insurance, everything else. And the frightening part is that this is a totally man-made, lifestyle-induced disease. In fact, half of the diseases that people die from in the Western world today, because we have all these other cures to deal with other stuff, are lifestyle-induced diseases. And I mean, even cancer, that'll shock people, but yeah, that is even what the data out there shows these days. 70 to 90% of all cases of cancer, the meta-analysis is showing that it's lifestyle-induced. Only 10 to 30% of people of cancers that are out there are not actually the fault of the person who got them, that they're purely genetic in nature and random. So the majority of cancers are completely lifestyle-induced. And what do we know about being obese? Being obese at least doubles your chances of getting cancer. And I'm talking about obesity from being fat, not people who gained some extra muscle and the scale went up. Totally different animal. But the reason this is a big deal is that this is part of the whole fat acceptance movement. And this little thing, as you guys can see from what they put in there, they are basically saying, hey, we like that Nike Women is promoting realistic bodies. And that being slim doesn't always mean being healthy. So they're trying to promote health and fitness at every size. You know, the reality is that's simply not true. That isn't true. Having certain types of obesity and certain types of body fat distribution is actually a disease, medically recognized as a disease and dangerous to your health, no matter what you do. And while they are right, being too thin or too lean can harm your health, and I very much promote that idea on this channel. I let people know that all the time. All the time, that getting too lean, getting too ripped can hurt you, it can damage your organs, it can damage your endocrine system, it can kill you. And I routinely point that out, that there are a lot of you in fitness YouTubers who diet down to levels of body fat that is actually harmful to you. Being too thin is harmful to you, being too lean is harmful to you. But in the grand scheme of things, the vast majority of people whose body fat is going to cause them harm, it's going to be from excessive body fat. You know, and that's what people need to understand. The extremes are always bad. The extremes are always bad, but it's always this ridiculousness is that the fat acceptance movement tries to only talk about the extremes. They act like that there's no difference between waifishly thin or emaciated, which again, a lot of even people who lived in the fitness world get emaciated, that there's emaciated and there's obese, and there's nothing in between. The reality is, healthy is what's in between those two. Both of those extremes are fucking deadly, and they're stupid, and you shouldn't be doing that. And if you have a lifestyle that causes you to get ultra lean, or to be obese, you really don't have a high ground to speak on morally when talking about health. You really don't. You know, it's no different than promoting smoking crack. Not really a big difference. It's just as deadly. So this idea they have of that they want to be anti-thin and act like that's the problem. Again, let's be realistic. Yes, there are plenty of people who get too lean and it harms their health. There's people in YouTube fitness who I promise you their health is going to be compromised from getting too lean in the long term. But they're a small minority of people, all right? I promise you, for every person who is going to suffer health problems from being too thin or too lean, there's 15 to 20 who are going to suffer health problems from being too fat. That's reality. So the fact that they always point that out, these groups, is really absurd, and it's really moving the goalpost a lot. And when you have companies like this promoting this, like Nike, for example, Nike sells sporting wear. I mean, tennis shoes. Their clothing was supposed to be for sports, for athletes originally. And of course it became mainstream and everyone wears it, but it's supposed to be promoting fitness and athleticism. And when they have these women on here who are wearing all this workout apparel who are still obese, it does send a bad image. And you know, this whole idea that you can be healthy while carrying excessive body fat isn't true. Now, is it true that working out, lifting weights, doing cardio, all of that can reduce the negative effects? Yes, yes it can. But you are only reducing the negative effects. It's also like saying if you smoke less crack, you're going to suffer less health risks from it, right? Someone who only smokes, say, a fifth of the amount of crack that someone else does, yeah, they're probably going to live longer. They're probably going to suffer less health effects from it. That's true. But it doesn't mean that smoking a fifth of the amount of crack as someone else is healthy. And it isn't healthy to carry 30 or 40 extra pounds of body fat outside of the healthy range. It isn't. Absolutely isn't. And that's something that has to be factored in here, particularly when you hold abdominal fat. If you have a gut that protrudes further out than your rib cage when you're standing, yeah, that is definitely a sign of poor health. That is a sign that you're going to have a lot of subcutaneous fat, not subcutaneous, but visceral fat. You're going to have more fat around your organs. That means you're going to be far, far more predisposed to liver disease, heart disease, diabetes, cancers, everything else. And so when they're sitting here promoting this, they're not promoting health or fitness at all. And people need to understand that while exercise and a good diet can offset a lot of this, it doesn't remove it completely. And interestingly enough, how come every time when we have a study done to where people lose weight through any method, even when they don't eat a good diet, we watched the guy do the whole Twinkie diet where the guy lived on a protein shake and Twinkies. Every day he did a caloric deficit and lost 30 pounds. What happened to his blood work on the Twinkie diet? His blood work improved. His fasting glucose improved. His cholesterol improved. All right. He didn't work out. He didn't do it the right way. He still ate garbage. He ate a deficient diet. But because he tracked everything and he ate in a caloric deficit, he lost body fat and his health improved even while not having an ideal lifestyle. So what does that tell you? That we know that excessive body fat harms your health no matter what, and losing that excessive body fat, even when it's not done in the healthiest ways, improves health markers. It improves health markers. So if that's the case, how in the world are you going to promote obesity as being healthy when even people who aren't healthy, don't have healthy lifestyles, and they lose 30 pounds of fat and they get down into the normal body fat range? I mean, even the guy who did this, like one of the guys who did the Twinkie diet, of course, he was a nutrition professor. He still was at least 20% body fat after losing that 30 pounds. He didn't get lean. It's not like the guy dropped down to an athletic body fat. He was still 20+%, probably 25% body fat after losing it. But by losing that 30 pounds of body fat, he got most of his health markers into the acceptable range. All right, his fasting glucose and his cholesterol profile made it into the acceptable range to where a doctor is going to say, okay, you're okay, you're reasonably healthy. And he did that while still holding, a little extra padding. And he did it while eating Twinkies and stuff. So again, what does that tell you? It tells you that fat loss itself, when it gets you close to a normal range, automatically improves health. Now, if you have someone who's 20% body fat as a male, for example, or 25% or even 30% body fat as a female, and they lose 10 pounds of fat, odds are their blood markers are not going to improve because they're already on the edge of the healthy range. Some people wouldn't consider that to be, depending on where you're at in the fitness community, wouldn't consider that particularly healthy, but they are close enough to the healthy range at that point that losing a little body fat is going to do very, very little for them. The only way they're going to improve their health significantly is going to be with exercise, diet, things like that. And that's usually what we see. But this idea that you can be healthy at any size simply isn't true. It's not based on reality. We know that lifting weights cuts cancer rates by 50%. All right, that is well documented in the data. But being obese doubles your chances of getting cancer. So if you're lifting weights and you're still carrying excessive body fat, all you've done is put yourself back to the average level. You haven't really improved yourself from the average person who isn't obese through your exercise of reducing your cancer rates. You've just put yourself at the normal risk of cancer. That's all you've done. And I mean, that's better than nothing, but it's still not going to correct it. And this is really a problem. We have things like this. When we have people dying of everything from diabetes to heart disease to cancers, and they're promoting obesity as normal and promoting these obese women as obtainable, as normal, as realistic. I'm sorry, but obesity shouldn't ever be considered realistic. All right, the only reason that losing body fat seems to be, to get to a healthy range, seems to be difficult for people is because of all the shitty fad diets and bad information that's out there. And this whole idea of instant gratification. The only reason this seems a problem for people is because people are promoting rapid weight loss methods and fake methods and con methods that don't work, instead of just being honest with everyone. It might take you a year. It might take you 2 years to lose the body fat you want to lose. If you don't want to have a particularly disciplined lifestyle, you don't want to spend a lot of time in the gym, you don't want to follow a really, really strict diet, it might take an obese person who looks like some of these women a year or 2 years to reach their goal. All right, and the people need to be realistic and honest about it. It's the unrealistic standards, unrealistic expectations, and the inability to follow through lifestyle changes in the long term that makes these seem normal and obtainable, and the idea of just being healthy seems unobtainable. You combine that in a society where junk food and fast food is available everywhere, and it makes it more difficult. But the truth is, Brittany lost 40 pounds when I got with her. And Brittany doesn't actually eat a fantastic diet by most definitions. Sure, she eats a lot of salads, she gets her lean proteins in. But Brittany's lost 40 pounds and is actually reasonably lean at this point, purely because she does a lot of lifting and cardio. All right, she does a lot of exercising to do that, to burn through those extra calories, because she didn't want to give up her junk food. She doesn't want to give up her ice cream, so she just trains harder to burn through it. And that's the other method that people can use. But you know what? She's even shown that you can actually out-train the extra calories that you eat anyways. It's that people just don't want to actually do it. They want to continue to eat the garbage food and their treat foods all the time, but they're not willing to put in extra food to burn through the excess calories from it to lose the body fat. And that's the problem. That they aren't being honest with themselves, and people are not being honest with the obese regarding what it actually takes to get there. And that's the problem. And campaigns like this aren't fucking helping. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.